What's up, Capstone family? This is Ed Drummond coming at you on this Good Friday, the 15th of April, 2022. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you clicking on the watch now or whatever that is button. But hey, wanted to connect this week, tying in a little bit to what we had talked about last week with air conditions and the heat of the market as it's picking up. What does it look like? How does that affect you? And how is it affecting us? Getting into it, what we're seeing as we've been talking about, the numbers for rents have seemed to start stabilizing. We're seeing a pattern now. So from the end of last year, let's see, from September of last year, if you look at the average lease price per square foot in the MLS, you're seeing that it's been consistent about that $1.35 a square foot. It's fluctuated. It's dropped down to $1.33. It's dropped, it stayed at that $1.35, but it's holding steady. So is that kind of foreshadowing of things to come? Are we starting to see maybe a little bit of a stabilization in the market? Who knows? Properties are still selling like crazy. We are still seeing, investors overpaying for properties. Because they have to pick these up. But, who's to say that that's not going to slow down sooner than later? The demand is crazy. It just is what it is. But it's always interesting in figuring out what's the best value for your property and how can you get the most out of it. So everybody's properties are going to be different. If you've got a tenant in your property, it's generally not going to get as much as something that's vacant, right? And depending on the rents, it could really not get as much because, again, if your rents aren't holding true with what the current rates are of rentals and an investor comes and picks up your property and they're not able to, immediately adjust the rents per, what the current rental rates are, then that's going to affect your purchase price. It's going to affect what people are willing to pay. On the other side of it, sometimes there are particular properties that investors want more than others. And they're willing to really overpay for those. So it really, when we're looking at and evaluating a lot of these deals that we're helping sell or having, our agents help in purchasing, it's figuring out how do the numbers really make sense? Is there more meat on the bones when it comes to current rentals, current rates? If you're considering selling, a plex or maybe a pool of properties, how much rent is upside potential for the next buyer and what are they willing to pay for that, right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at that model right now and how it makes sense and whether or not it makes sense for you to sell. Again, the question becomes, where are you going to put the money? It's the first question, right? Where are you going to take, if you were going to sell any of your assets right now, where are you going to put the money? Where is it going to make similar to what you're making? And again, I'm not talking about just cash flow because for the most of us, it's not just cash flow that we're making with these properties. We're making appreciation. We're taking the depreciation. We're writing off the expenses. We're watching the growth with that appreciation over time. And that generally, especially for the last few years, it's completely beat just about every other, opportunity that you could have found if you bought at the right time and continue to hold. So I think that's something to consider. If you have a question, if you're contemplating selling your property, please reach out and let's talk through it. In that, sometimes it's good just to have a soundboard and somebody asking you questions that you might not have heard before or that, we don't talk about at dinner parties, right? We keep this stuff kind of close in. It's very few times that I'm in a social setting that I talk real estate about my specifics because nobody wants to hear that, right? Nobody wants to hear about what I've got going on. And if I did, unless they're my accountant or unless there's somebody who I'm aspiring to get to that level that they're at with their investments, it's like they can't relate, right? It's a completely unique situation for me specifically because not only just the piece of real estate over here, but also all these other things in my why as to what gets this over here. Like, hey, it might have these doors over here, but my why is really what's driving that, right? So I always joke with people and say I'm never selling anything. I joke about that all the time, and I'm sure at some point I'm going to sell, but like that doesn't fit in my model right now. I'm not at a stage in my life where selling makes any sort of sense. And arguably, if there was a 10-year dip and we had to ride the next wave up, I'm totally cool with that, because right now I'm not counting on the cash flow or the top line of my properties for anything other than generational wealth in the future. If I were to pull that out now, it's going to affect me negatively, because again, the only time you lose in real estate is when you sell. I didn't make that up. That was told to me. So just so you know. In addition, did have an experience this week. So guess what? I put it out to the universe, the whole AC question last weekend. And guess who gets a call from Capstone on Friday afternoon that one of their ACs is down? This guy. Oh my gosh, how random. It was so interesting. So what do? We sent out one of the vendors, and again, we're constantly looking for new vendors in this market. Constantly looking. I want them to be at least 4.5 star reviewed companies on most of the social media apps, whether it's Yelp, Google, whatever it is, because I know that if they've got a lot of great reviews, that speaks volumes. I mean, for us to maintain good reviews has been challenging over the years. There's always one or two people who try to deliberately try to drag that down. It's like on the AC side, it's no different. So keeping good reviews is really, really important to me. Sent a company out to one of my properties, AC issue. Is basically all I was told. It sounds like that AC, that where it was an issue was that it just wasn't cooling and quick enough, right? And again, in this market, tenants are paying a lot for properties. So, a request like that comes in, and yes, we're going to send an AC company out there to see what happens. The report that I got back from a new partner was, or prospect, was that there was 2 different bids. One was for complete replacement, and the other was looking close to, a couple $1,000s. Complete replacements right now aren't what they were 3 years ago. Last time I did a complete replacement, I think I paid like $6,000. Now it's like $8,500, right? So it's like it's a completely different game right now. There's a shortage. Like it affects me too. Like I'm in this with you. So I'm like, oh man, like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a decision on 4:30 on Friday afternoon. All right, let's do this. We can't do much. We can't really help the tenant out too much because can't get anything fixed on the weekend. Tenant's cool about it. They understand completely. And again, I need a second opinion. So we send out our OG. We send out our guy who's been with us forever. He is a one-man show. He's not scaling any business anytime soon because he does it all himself. But, I mean, I trust him more than anybody else with AC stuff because he knows more than anything. He's just, he's not scaling his business anytime soon because he can't find people to replace himself and offer the quality of service similar to him. So he goes out there. Unfortunately, it's a completely different diagnosis. Or I should say fortunately, and AC's up and running, recharged, things are looking good, and tenant is happy. So it's one of those things where we've got to try. It's trial and error with new companies to see how they align with what we expect out of them going out to these properties and the feedback that we get from them. Right? I don't want to charge you for an AC unit. I don't want you to be paying out of pocket for an AC unit if you don't have to. Like these AC units with the right person, we can keep them running for a long time if they were previously maintained pretty well. So, it's bandaging them, it's putting them together, and at a certain point, the cost just doesn't make sense. And replacement is the option. But in certain situations, like we've got to push that. One of the reasons why I am not a fan of home warranties is that particularly because we lose control on who we're sending out there. The home warranty companies are the ones who send out these AC companies. And when the AC company finds something that does not coincide with something that is going to be covered under the home warranty, you end up paying for it. And when you end up paying for it, it's significantly, in most cases that we've seen, you're paying more for it, and the level of service isn't something that we can control. It's not something where we know that there's going to be follow-up, that we know that this is going to happen moving forward. It changes the whole game. Again, it's just a whole different experience. And behind the scenes for us, tons of work and lack of communication makes it very, very, very hard to seem like, hey, we've got this going on, we've got this, we're doing this. It's just kind of like it comes in when it comes in. Cool. I hope this message finds you doing well this week. Thanks for watching. Again, I'll let you know next week if my AC ends up not running this weekend. I laugh, but at the same time, like, I'm super confident in the work that our guy took care of, and trust that it's getting done. And at the end of the day, like in this market, like, again, it's tough out there for a lot of these vendors that we've worked with for years and years and years and years. There's so many different things that are squeezing them, right? From gas prices to, just not having the access to product, right? To be able to do things like I mentioned, a few months ago, our flooring company couldn't even get trim, baseboard trim, because it's sitting on some ship somewhere, and it's like, man, that's insane. They do a lot of turns for us. To not be able to get that one thing changed a lot of how they have to, price and systems and processes. They got to change things up to make it work. Hey, I hope this message finds you doing well. Thanks again for watching. Look forward to connecting again soon, and have an amazing Easter weekend. Thank you.